Rome, Italy, a city of history, culture, and danger. Our story begins in the heart of this ancient metropolis, where life is both exhilarating and perilous. The year is 44 BC, and Rome is a city in turmoil. The recent assassination of Julius Caesar has left the city on edge, and the streets are filled with people from all walks of life. The wealthy elite, the common folk, and the desperate, power-hungry senators looking to take advantage of the chaos. It's a melting pot of ambition, deceit, and intrigue. Amidst this maelstrom of activity, we meet our protagonist, Paul, a seasoned swordmaster and fencing instructor who owns and operates a small fencing school in the city. He is a former gladiator who hung up his sword and shield after years of bloodshed in the arena. Now he teaches the noble youth of Rome the art of swordplay, instilling in them discipline, courage, and respect for their opponents. But despite the clamor of steel on steel that echoes daily from his school, his life is not without its shadows. Haunted by his past, he finds solace only in the rhythmic clash of blades and the camaraderie of his students. One fateful afternoon, as Paul is practicing with one of his students, a young man named Marcus, the tranquility of the lesson is shattered. A group of men armed with daggers burst into the fencing school, demanding to see Paul. Led by a man whose face is hidden behind a bronze mask, they reek of arrogance and menace. Their eyes, cold and hard, reveal their true intentions. This is no ordinary confrontation. These men are not mere thugs. They are assassins, sent by a mysterious figure known only as the Serpent, a cunning and ruthless individual who pulls the strings of power from the shadows. His latest target, none other than Paul himself. But why? What has Paul done to attract the attention of such a dangerous enemy? As it turns out, Paul had inadvertently stumbled into a world of deceit and danger when he helped a young woman escape an arranged marriage. Little did he know that the woman's father was none other than the Serpent, one of the most influential figures in Rome. When the Serpent's daughter, Cornelia, decided to resist her arranged marriage to a senator's son, she turned to Paul for help. Trusting in his honor and sense of justice, she sought his aid in her desperate bid for freedom. Paul, moved by her courage and determination, couldn't turn a blind eye to her plight. So, he helped her escape, providing her with shelter in a secret location outside the city. The Serpent, upon discovering his daughter's disappearance, unleashed his network of spies and assassins to find her. And soon, his cold, calculating gaze fell on Paul, suspecting him to be Cornelia's accomplice. Thus began Paul's harrowing ordeal, as he found himself hunted by the deadliest assassins in Rome. With nowhere to turn for help, he knew he had to rely on his skills as a swordmaster to defend himself. But these men were no ordinary swordsmen. They were trained killers, each one a master of his deadly trade. Paul's every move was anticipated, every attack deflected with deadly precision. They fought with the ferocity of cornered wolves, their eyes gleaming with murderous intent. As the battle raged on, Paul's resolve only grew stronger. He fought not just for his own survival, but for the memory of his fallen comrades, for the honor of his name, and for the hope of a better future for Rome. But even as he fought with the strength of a lion, a deep sense of foreboding lingered in his heart. He knew that this was only the beginning. The Serpent's wrath was like a storm gathering on the horizon, dark, powerful, and unstoppable. And as the dust settled on this first encounter, Paul realized that he was just a pawn in a much larger game, a game where the stakes were high, the rules were few, and the only way to survive was to strike back. In the ensuing days, Paul prepared for the coming storm. He sharpened his blade, honed his skills, and sought the counsel of old friends. He needed to be ready, not just for the Serpent's assassins, but for the darkness that seemed to be enveloping Rome. Meanwhile, the Serpent's grip on the city tightened. His spies were everywhere, his assassins lurking in the shadows. Rome, once a beacon of civilization, was fast becoming a city of fear and uncertainty. Then came the day when the Serpent decided to make his move. In a daring and brutal attack, his assassins struck again, targeting not just Paul, but also his close friend and fellow gladiator, Decimus. Cornered in his gladiator barracks, Decimus fought bravely but was ultimately overpowered. Despite being mortally wounded, he managed to send a message to Paul before succumbing to his injuries. With Decimus gone, Paul's resolve hardened into steel. He would not rest until he had avenged his friend's death and brought the serpent to justice. He began his investigation into the serpent's identity, seeking clues that could lead him to the mastermind behind the attacks. But the serpent was a ghost, a whisper in the wind, leaving no trace of his presence behind. Just when all hope seemed to be lost, a glimmer of light appeared on the horizon. A former associate of the serpent, a woman named Livia, came forward with information. She knew the serpent's true identity, and she was willing to help Paul bring him down. The revelation of the serpent's true identity came as a shock to Paul. It was someone he had trusted, someone he had thought was on his side. Betrayed and furious, he vowed to expose the serpent's schemes and put an end to his reign of terror once and for all. With new urgency, Paul set out to confront the serpent, determined to end the deadly game. Meanwhile, the serpent, sensing the danger he was in, took drastic measures to protect himself. He fled Rome, leaving behind a city teetering on the edge of chaos. But Paul was hot on his trail. With each passing day, he closed in on the serpent's whereabouts, eager to bring him to justice. As the two men closed in on each other, a final showdown was inevitable. And when it came, it was a clash of titans. The serpent, despite his efforts to maintain his anonymity, was recognizable to some. Certain senators and influential figures in Rome knew who he was, but they turned a blind eye to his activities, benefiting from the chaos he created. They knew that exposing him would mean disrupting the delicate balance of power they so carefully cultivated. Therefore, they chose to remain silent, allowing the serpent to continue his reign of terror unchecked. The confrontation between Paul and the serpent was more than just a physical battle. It was a clash of ideologies, of order versus chaos, of justice versus corruption. Paul, representing the best of Rome's traditions, fought against the serpent who embodied the city's darkest underbelly. In the end, it was Paul who emerged victorious, bringing the serpent's nefarious schemes to an end. In the aftermath of the battle, Rome began to heal. The wounds of the past were still fresh, but the people were resilient. As the city slowly rebuilt itself, Paul became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, one man's courage could make a difference. However, not everyone was pleased with Paul's victory. Many senators and influential figures who had profited from the chaos engineered by the serpent saw Paul as a threat to their way of life. They feared that his actions would expose their own involvement in the city's turmoil and bring about a reckoning that they weren't prepared for. Thus began a new chapter in Paul's life, one filled with challenges and dangers as he found himself hunted by the very people who had once supported the serpent. Undeterred, Paul continued to train young gladiators, passing on his knowledge and experience to the next generation. He became a mentor, a father figure to many of the young men who flocked to his school, eager to learn the art of combat. At the same time, he never let his guard down. He lived in constant awareness of the danger that lurked around every corner, always ready to defend himself against the shadows that seemed to be closing in on him. Thus, the legend of Paul, the sword master of Rome, continued to grow, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a man who refused to be broken by the adversities he faced. Now, amidst the commotion, Paul's eyes fall on a peculiar sight, a young woman kneeling beside a stone basin, seemingly captivated by a large beetle crawling on her finger. Amused by the scene, he observes her as she gently strokes the insect, an unexpected gentleness gracing her features. Suddenly, the beetle lunges at her, biting into her finger with surprising force. Startled, the woman cries out, attracting the attention of the men accompanying her. Noticing Paul's gaze, one of the men, a burly fellow with a menacing air, stands up, interrupting Paul's contemplation. "Don't just stand there gawking," he snaps, gesturing towards the woman with a jerk of his chin. "Go on, get out of here." Paul doesn't budge. "I don't want any trouble," he replies calmly, meeting the man's hostile gaze with his own steady eyes. "Just mind your own business and stay out of ours." The burly man scoffs, recognizing Paul's composed demeanor as a potential challenge. But before he can escalate the situation, the woman with the beetle interrupts them. "That's enough, Titus," she says firmly, standing up and turning to Paul. "I apologize for his rudeness. He doesn't understand the gravity of the matter." Addressing Paul directly, her tone turns pleading. "You must leave immediately and never return. If you value your life, don't ask questions and don't look back. Leave now." Her words hang in the air, laced with desperation and urgency. Clearly, this beetle holds immense importance for her. Oblivious to the dangerous game unfolding around him, Marcus asks, "Who are you? Why do you want me to leave?" Paul remains silent, his gaze fixed on the woman. As if making a decision, he sheathes his sword and nods slightly. "Very well," he replies quietly. Turning around, he disappears into the crowd, leaving behind the enigmatic woman and the ominous presence of the beetle. As Paul walks away, the woman lets out a shaky breath, her shoulders slumping slightly. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice hoarse with tension. Titus glances at her, his expression shifting from hostility to concern. "Are you sure this is wise? What if he tells the others?" The woman shakes her head slowly, her eyes distant. "There is no other choice. We cannot risk exposure." Her gaze drifts back to Paul's departing figure, a mix of gratitude and apprehension on her face. Deep in the bustling heart of Rome, Paul seeks refuge in the familiar surroundings of his fencing school. However, the vibrant atmosphere of clanging steel and boisterous laughter does little to ease the unease that has taken root in his mind. The encounter with the woman and the strange beetle has left an unsettling question mark in his thoughts. Who was she, and what was the significance of the beetle? As the evening shadows lengthen, casting long fingers of darkness across the city, Paul finds himself drawn to the window overlooking the street. His gaze, sharp and focused, scans the crowds, searching for any sign of movement or recognition. His instincts tell him that the woman and her companions might be watching him, waiting for his next move. Suddenly, his eyes catch a glimpse of a familiar figure weaving through the throngs of people, moving with a purpose that matches his own. It is the woman from earlier, her steps confident and unwavering. She is accompanied by two men, their faces obscured by the shadows, but their presence radiating danger. She spots Paul and without hesitation begins crossing the street towards him. His mind races, trying to piece together the puzzle of their intentions. Are they here to harm him? Or is there another motive behind their visit? As the woman approaches, her eyes locked onto his, he prepares for the worst. His hand instinctively moves to the hilt of his sword, ready to defend himself if needed. But even as he steels himself for a potential confrontation, a part of him cannot help but wonder what secrets the enigmatic woman and her beetle hold, secrets that seem to be calling to him from the depths of Rome's shadowy underbelly. With bated breath, Paul watches as the woman draws closer, each step echoing the relentless beat of his heart. The enigma deepens, the danger rises, and with it, the promise of a truth that could shatter the very foundations of Rome. And as the night descends, the stage is set for a showdown that will test Paul's skills, courage, and the very essence of his being.